So last week we spoke about renting versus buying a home. And if you decided that now is the time for you to buy, the next step we need to cover is what you should expect in the way of closing costs and how much you need to put down. So buckle up because we're going to cover a lot of important information and even get into specific numbers so you understand exactly what you need to save in order to be prepared to buy your first home. Hi, I'm Karen Torres, and I'd like to introduce you to my channel, Move Me to Dallas, where we discuss living in the Dallas Metroplex, surrounding suburbs, and all that it has to offer. I've been a realtor with Ebby Halliday for 10 years and was born and raised in North Texas, so I would be honored to introduce you to this wonderful area that I call home. So you found a home you love, and you're ready for your realtor to write up an offer. Hang on. We need to go in reverse for just a second. Have you spoken to a lender? Have you received a pre-approval from a lender yet? Falling in love with a home before you have spoken to a lender and received a pre-approval letter is putting the cart before the horse. So first off, by speaking to a lender and getting your pre-approval up front, it provides you and your realtor with a clear picture of what price range of homes you should be looking at. You may be surprised that you can actually qualify for more than you thought. But on the other hand, if you qualify for less than what you thought and you've been looking at homes in a higher price range, then you just spent time falling in love with homes that are out of reach. And that stinks. Second, this market is sizzling hot right now, and the last thing you want to do when you find that perfect home is to be scrambling at the last minute with trying to qualify for a loan and obtaining a pre-approval letter from a lender. And here's the thing, without that pre-approval letter, the seller will not even consider your offer. End of story, not going to happen. Another thing to keep in mind is that there is a difference between being pre-qualified versus pre-approved. These two terms are sometimes mistakenly used interchangeably, but there is most definitely a difference. A pre-approval estimates how much you may be able to borrow to buy a home based on a preliminary review of your credit information, your verified income and assets, and comes with a written guarantee that generally lasts for 90 days. A pre-qualification is nowhere near as formal. It's simply an estimate on how much you could borrow based on unverified information you provide to your mortgage consultant. The process can help you determine whether or not you're ready to apply for a pre-approval and give you a rough idea of the price range that you can afford. So once again, I know I keep talking about the red hot market that we're in, but that's just where we are right now. And by having that pre-approval, you are improving your chances of your offer being accepted because the seller will see that you're further into the loan process than someone with just a pre-qualification letter. And at the end of the day, that is the goal, standing out and getting your offer accepted. So another thing you will want to discuss with your lender will be the different types of loans available and which ones make the most sense for your circumstances. As an overview, here are a few types of loans to consider that will help you know how much you need to put down on a home, but please rely on your lender for specifics. FHA loans are popular with many first-time home buyers due to the low down payment of just 3.5%, and FHA loans have recently been increased to loan up to $411,700. The biggest advantage of an FHA backed loan is that it doesn't require the borrower to produce a large down payment, and your credit score can be less than stellar. However, with that low down payment comes the disadvantage of requiring borrowers to pay for two types of mortgage insurance premium and an annual premium. This is because the lender assumes more risk with a lower down payment and therefore requires more insurance that the borrower won't default on the loan. Conventional loans allow for higher loan limits than compared to FHA loans and go up to $548,250, but they also have stricter credit requirements with a credit score of at least 620 and debt to income ratio of 50% or less. However, the advantage to conventional loans allows borrowers who meet first-time home buyer requirements to put as little as 3% down, which is even better than FHA loans. Something to keep in mind, if a borrower is able to put 20% down, they will avoid the cost of PMI and thereby reducing your monthly house payment, which is pretty sweet. Have you served our country in the military? VA loans are available for our veterans with the benefit of no money down, zero down payment, and they will not be charged for any PMI or mortgage insurance premiums. It's a wonderful opportunity, so be sure to take advantage of it. Cannot get much better than zero down. So we've talked about how much you will need to put down. And by the way, the down payment is not given until the closing day. But there are some costs that you need to be aware of and prepare to pay before closing as soon as you have an executed contract on a home. Earnest money is a negotiated amount within the contract, but typically 1% of the cost of the home. So for a $300,000 home, you would need to provide $3,000 to the title company within 3 days of executing your contract. As long as you close on the home, your earnest money will be credited back and applied towards your down payment at closing. Option money is another negotiated amount and varies, but you can count on a minimum of $100. This is also provided to the title company within 3 days of executing the contract, and you are paying for the privilege of having the unrestricted right to back out of the contract if you so wish within the agreed upon number of days, customarily 5 to 10 days, without the threat of losing your earnest money. As long as you close on the home, you will receive a credit for your option money as well. During this option period, you will want to have an inspection, and that cost will vary depending on the size of the home, if there is a pool, or various other things. You should count on a minimum of $400 for your home inspection. Your lender will require an appraisal be done on the home prior to closing, and that can vary between $300 to $600 depending on the size of the home. Another negotiated item within the contract is the survey. Best case scenario is that the seller has an existing survey that they are providing, but if not, you may be required to purchase a new one, and that can run approximately $400. Also, keep in mind setting up your utilities may require a deposit. Finally, closing costs. So keep in mind closing costs are separate and in addition to your down payment. Closing costs will typically include what is called prepaid costs, and that involves prepaying 14 months of home insurance and 3 months of taxes, as well as title and lender fees. So here's a breakdown to help you visualize what you need to have saved, but is not exact, and I want to mention again, consult your lender for amounts related to your specific finances. If you found a home for $300,000 and decided to go with an FHA loan, putting 3.5% down, here's the breakdown of funds you would need to have set aside and saved. $10,500 is needed for your down payment that's paid at closing, which is your 3.5%. But remember, of that $10,500, you are paying $3,000 in earnest money immediately upon the execution of your contract, and then it is credited back to you at closing. $7,500 for closing costs that are paid at closing. $1,300 prior to closing to cover your option fee, appraisal, and survey if needed. So here is the magic number. You would need approximately $20,000 set aside to purchase your $300,000 home. I know we have covered a lot of information today, and there is a lot to consider when buying your first home. So I decided to put together a booklet so you don't have to commit to memory everything that I just spoke about. It's called Your Complete Guide to the Home Buying Process, and it is not just a fluff piece. There are actual real life tips and an explanation of home buying terms you will hear throughout the transaction, timing it will take to close, and expenses that you can expect to see during the home buying process. I really think you will find it super helpful, and there is no cost to you. Just look below and click on the link that I've tagged to the top of the comments so that I can send you a copy. And if you're interested in learning more about the Dallas area or suburbs, I have a series of videos over here that talk about areas around the Metroplex that you might find helpful, so take a look at those. See you next week.